Session of the 14th National Assembly officially commences on September 12th. The Republican President, Ms. Hakainde Hichilema, addresses will be a pivotal moment in shaping the country's economic and development agenda for 2026. Today, on the countdown to the official opening, we offer a timely examination of the potential impact of the session's outcomes on the nation's development trajectory. My name is Porcent Ndovi. My guest on today's program, I do have Mrs. Caroline Katotowe, who is Executive Director from Center for Sustainable Democracy and Governance, CSDG. Madam, thank you so much for finding time to join us on Parliament Radio and Parliament Television.
Thank you so much for having me.
How's the organization doing?
The organization is good.
Okay.
We're growing. Of course, in relevance and impact.
Okay.
So we would say everything is looking good.
My other guest on today's program, I do have Mr. John Lijemu, who is Governance and Development Expert. Sir, thank you so much for finding time and being with us on Parliament Radio and TV.
Thanks, Porcent, for inviting us to come and just be part of this discourse. I must say, very important one. And we hope that we can do justice to to this particular topic. Yeah.
Not too long ago, Caroline, you just joined CSDG.
Yes.
And how have you settled?
Well, we've settled quite well. I think currently the environment is very conducive for civil society organizations in terms of the political will that is out there when it comes to us being part of the political discourse. We feel it is also a timely shift in environment when it comes to the political players being inclusive in terms of how civil society shows up.
Okay.
So we feel our settlement has been expedited as a result of that, because we kind of hit the ground running, literally, in the sense that as and when we were fully on the ground, there were a number of programs that were initiated by the government itself, but also in terms of society individual-driven initiatives, such as those that are happening in the constitutional reforms.
Okay.
And we have a lot of touching points that we have had to go in and speak with other stakeholders, which of course includes the policymakers. So it's been quite good.
Mr. Lijumo, the Republican President, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, who on Friday, the 12th, be here at Parliament grounds and officially open the 5th session of the 13th Assembly. He's been in the House. This will be his 4th time, apart from when it comes to address the country on the principles and values. But how do you make of the previous addresses that the Republican President has made this far?
Great. First of all, I think we need to underscore the fact that National Assembly, or Parliament, as many people would call it, whichever way that you choose to call it, is an integral part of the governance system of any particular country, Zambia included. It actually forms the main arms of government itself, which includes the executive, where you find the president and the vice president and all his people. Then you do have the judiciary, and then you do have the National Assembly, which is Parliament. I usually like to add the media, as the 4th arm of government. That's just my journalism, perspective, because you cannot run government without having the media, being part of the process in ensuring that people are aware, there's information sharing. But to come to your question, it is the mandate of the president, and it is his obligation that by virtue of being elected into government, first of all, the very first year, he has to give an inaugural parliamentary opening ceremony. It is as it were him assembling all the people that he's going to operate with in terms of the structure of National Assembly, who are the members of Parliament, together with this, the other office bearers, to be able to now structure the positions that are supposed to be elected. So in that first inaugural ceremony, we then see the election of the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Deputy Speaker, and all other positions that are. So overall, I think the past 4 years that President Hakainde Hichilema has been able to come to National Assembly has been every time a point of this, first of all, citizens having huge expectations of what the president is going to speak that should be able to generate and give a course of action or a direction of how the country should go. But it has also been a point of where the president gives himself an opportunity to be able to come once and address the nation and explain the government policies and how the government is operating. So he's hit it very well. I must say that he's articulate. He's been able to be on point and addressing and bringing all issues that the country is facing. One of them was very crazy at the time that we experienced the greatest drought, and that is a mark of leadership that a president should be able to come and face.
And I know we'll get to look at some of the successes that the UPND government has scored in the last 4 years they've been governing this country. I should also make mention that my sign language interpreter this morning is Jason Manda, and this is an interactive TV and radio program where we expect you, our viewers and listeners out there, to get your phone and let us know where you are listening us from. And if you wish to make any contribution, the number that we are using is 0978 772801. That's 0978 772801. Feel free to be part and parcel of today's presentation of the countdown to the ceremonial opening of the 5th session of the 14th National Assembly here at Parliament. We know that activities are ongoing at Parliament, and the full swing rehearsal taking place, and we'll be able to cut to what is going on at Parliament grounds and just to show you what is happening at Parliament grounds. Let me get to you, Caroline. How does the ceremony reflect the principles of parliamentary democracy in Zambia?
Right. That's a brilliant question, because I think when we see a ceremony, sometimes we are overtaken by events in terms of how glamorous and how big it is, the magnitude of the ceremony. But underneath that, there's a huge significance in terms of how the three arms of government converge. And this is where you have a momentous moment which symbolizes the unity of purpose when it comes to, of course, we always talk about separation of powers. But in separation of powers, in as much as we celebrate the autonomy of the separation of powers, we also celebrate the unity of purpose in the separation of powers. And this is where you see the president come through, and he is, of course, the head of state and part and parcel of the executive, setting the tone for how this country will be governed in terms of policies, in terms of initiatives. And it also speaks to, it's a moment of unity, as I have said already, where you have everyone, whether it is from opposition, from the ruling party, under one roof, under one head of state. And this says to all of us that are participants, or all of us that are on the sidewalk watching in, that this is a moment where we're saying we need to drive this country with one accord.
Okay.
Under that ceremony signifies one accord in terms of how we progress as a country, what our priorities should be as a country, irrespective of which side one falls. So that ceremony in itself is saying, look, this is a celebration of unity as a country, as a people, as Zambians. And this is your leadership in totality when we speak about national leadership. We're speaking about, of course, the executive, and we're speaking, of course, about the National Assembly, which constitutes the members of parliament. That, by the way, are part and parcel of representatives of the Zambian people. So that ceremony in itself is not just for the politicians in the house, it is for each and every Zambian out there to, on that day, feel as a participant to what will be going on throughout the sessions when Parliament starts. Okay. And so that in itself is very significant and very impactful. And I just want to make mention here that it is no wonder that every time the president has gone to address, he carries a message of encouragement. He carries a message of purpose. He carries a message that drives, that sets the tone, so to speak, for the rest of the undertakings. And he also carries a message of hope for the Zambian people. And that is what that ceremony is all about. Okay. It is something that gives hope to all of us.
So, Lijimo, you would want to add?
Yeah, so I think Caroline has done justice to that particular question. But I wanted to just add that the significance of this is, I'll just give you an example. You have a home, Mr. Posent, and this home just operates. The father and mother don't, and the children don't have a moment that they meet to be able to discuss very important issues and be able to analyze how they are operating. That house would be in serious chaos. So, in a simpler term, so that even my grandmother out there in the village can understand, that ceremony then is very vital and important, because it provides that opportunity for everyone that is involved in leading this country to be able to participate and be part of that discourse.
I know you are both governance experts. Let's speculate. What policies or initiatives do you expect come Friday the 12th the president is likely to announce?
I think the policies that he will announce are the exciting happenings within the economy when it comes to investments. And I feel it has been very widespread when we're talking of investments. So I will narrow it to key sectors within our economy, which of course we cannot leave out the mining sector, we cannot leave the agriculture sector, we cannot leave out the tourism sector. And when you speak of these three in itself, the energy sector is one other sector. There has been a lot of investments, exciting moments that have happened within these sectors. We have seen the reopening of mines. We have seen how the production has doubled or tripled or quadrupled in most of these operations of the mines. We have seen the investment for the first time in the agriculture sector, where we are looking into research and development. And when we talk about research and development, we are talking about how can we have seed that is resistant to the climate change, for example, or climatic environment. And so you are looking at an investment that has been driven by, state-of-the-art ideas, so to speak, in the sense that we are looking at the technologies that have happened within the agriculture sector when it comes to us, enjoying the bumper harvest that we're enjoying now. But also, most importantly, because when you look at a sector and the driving points of a sector, policies such as those that favor the manufacturer or the producer are very important. And what we have been able to witness is phenomenon, so to speak, in the sense that FRA has offered a competitive price, because that was the biggest issue when it comes to crop production, including our very dear maize and mealie meal. And of course that affected the fluctuation of prices. We saw them going up. And this is because for the longest time agriculture was not seen as a business. It was seen as something that you do as a by the way, and which is very dangerous for a country, because remember, we are talking about food security here, matters of food security. So when we were hit by the drought, I think that was a wake-up call also to say, can we move away from rain-fed, and can we look at having production throughout the year? Come rain, come sunshine, we are still producing. And these innovations and initiatives have driven the agriculture sector in a way that we've never seen before. Farmers currently are happy because the off-taker, FRA, is there to get their produce at a price that is reflective of the cost of production.
I know the Zambian people, more especially a lot of stakeholders, have received the issue to export some maize to neighboring countries with mixed feelings. Yes. How do you make that pronouncement that the Minister of Agriculture announced that Zambia is ready now to export part of the maize that we've harvested this year? Before I bring in Mr. Dijim.
Right. I feel Zambians need to be informed about where this is coming from. I think sometimes we fear what we do not fully understand, which is normal for one to expect. And that is why I think my comrade here and colleague and myself in civil society and as governance expert, we are here to just set the record straight. And I'd like to begin from why export, and what are the benefits of exporting, and where does that leave the country when you export. So here's the thing. I think the Zambians that have raised concern, their concern mainly is, are we taking away from our own reserves? The answer is no. I think it will be shooting ourselves in the foot to take away from your own reserves and export. So when we hear exporting, this is an informed decision by key stakeholders, key players within the industry, to say that we are at a space where we are comfortable with our reserves.
Okay, Mr. Lijimu, I know you've got a lot to talk about,
Absolutely.
Caroline. Yeah, but let's give an opportunity.
Yes.
I like to simplify things so that everybody that is watching us can understand. So here is a situation where you have enough food in your home. You've cultivated enough out there in the farm, and now you have enough, and from your projection this could take you the next 12 months. So you do have some surplus of that food. You need to make a decision whether you would want it to be kept there for the sake of just keeping it there, so that probably it can even go to waste, or you could decide that some of it can actually be sold out so that you have some money that boosts into your next farming season. That's exactly what government is doing. So it's a situation where, for example, for starters, Mr. Ndovi, you are aware that government had actually set out to buy 500 metric tons of maize only, and a budget was allocated to that. But I think knowing and listening to the people's cries and saying, look, we need to be food secure, government has gone further to double that particular purchase.
All right, let's get back.
So that so that really is just to give comfort to every citizen that I think we are on safe ground, even when that decision is actually being made. But to get back to what you asked,
yes,
the policies. The policies that I expect that the president is going to emphasize on, like Caroline has rightly put it, definitely we're going to have a lot of policies that will be put in place with regard to all the happenings that have happened in the mining sector. So now there are policies that are being put in place to ensure that there's more cohesion in terms of how the mining sector is supposed to be run. But also we expect that the president is going to talk to speak to the issues of the electoral processes, knowing that, you see, we have just about 10-11 months or even less to the next general election. So there are certain things that I think the president is going to make as pronouncements that should shape a direction and a complexion of how we then start to engage ourselves with regard to the next general election. There could be many other policies definitely that will come up, and I hope we can delve into those a little bit more.
The number that we are using, if you wish, to be part and parcel of today's presentation of the countdown to the official opening of the 5th session of the 14th Assembly by the Republican President this coming Friday, the 12th of September. The number that we're using is 0978-772801. So feel free to send in your text message, your question, your contribution, and I'll be able to read out your concerns, and my two experts will be able to respond to your concern. Do remember that I do have Ms. Caroline Katotobwe, who is Executive Director from Center for Sustainable Democracy and Governance, CSDG, and I also have Mr. John Lijimu, Governance and Development Expert, just to help us and look at what is expected to be addressed by the Republican President. When the New Dawn government formed government in 2021, the biggest thing that they were talking about, even the Republican president during campaigns before he became the Republican president, was the issue to do with free education. And we've seen numbers rising in these schools. But the biggest concern is what will happen. Quite all right, we'll have so many pupils that will reach up to grade 12. But again, from grade 12, doing tertiary education, it's something else. Do you expect the president, maybe in his address, to make major pronouncements regarding free education, and how do you rate the performance of the New Dawn government in terms of education, in the education sector?
So the issue of free education was one of the masterpiece promises that the UPND government gave whilst they were in opposition. We'll not talk about to what level, but I think one thing that is underscored is that the UPND government indicated in clarity that they wanted to provide an education to every child and every individual that would want to see education as an opportunity to be an equalizer for their life. They have achieved that. They have actualized that. They have scored that particular promise. And I do think that that particular policy and stance has just for once been able to expose the level of illiteracy we were going to plunge ourselves in as a country. The statistics are very clear. We currently have over 2 million students or pupils that have enrolled as a result of this window of opportunity for free education. That shows you, percent, that we had over 2 million children that were not going to school for whatever reasons, but one of the reasons was the fact that they had an impediment in their way to get into a system of education. And because it has been opened and that impediment has actually, that bottleneck has been removed out, everyone has now come on board and to want to access this education. That is good. That is commendable. And I think that the president with his team did not set off this particular task and agenda without considering the effect that will eventually happen as these children actually progress in the education system. So what we want to see is a situation where the president eventually will have to put in a structural program that assists in how do then all these pupils get the education that does not only end at grade 8 or at grade 12, but it takes them further into skills development, for example, into job creation, into and I think the UPND should already start to think, the government should start to think of how these people that will be educated must be assimilated into development and production for the country.
All right, let's bring in
yes,
Caroline. Yes.
I would like to weigh in on that. We are already also seeing, just as a stem off from what my colleague has mentioned, when it comes to the continuity of that educational aspect in terms of the freeness of education, we have seen an increase in bursaries when it comes to tertiary learning. Majority of the universities, whether University of Zambia, Copperbelt University, Mulungushi, they are able to access and tap into that resource of bursary, which majority of us benefited from. And we are seeing it, the restoration of the bursary for meal allowances, for example. This also helps in the sense that majority of those that cannot afford are able to afford to be in tertiary, education. We are also seeing majority of the young people that are going up to grade 12 tap into the CDF allocation for artisanal skills. We are seeing them being trained in carpentry, bricklaying, in entrepreneurship skills, and a lot others. So the road actually has not ended at free education up to grade 12 only. We have seen how the government has been proactive in setting the groundwork for how somebody advances, after grade 12. And these are some of the good policies that we have seen. Would we like to see an increment? Of course we would. I think there are lots that can benefit from the bursary for tertiary education. There are lots that can benefit from the meal allowances. There's still a lot that can benefit from the CDF when it comes to softer skills training, such as carpentry and so on. But it is looking good from where we're sitting. Would like to see an increase, of course. at some point we will be privy to the budget, and these are some of the things that we look to see in terms of how much injection will be going into some of these priority areas.
You've really talked about one of the major achievement that the New Dawn government has done, and this is regard to CDF, and we'll
Yes.
get to that and see how CDF has impacted. And should we speculate that the Republican president would touch on CDF, and maybe we may see an increase in terms of the allocation to various constituencies that we have dotted, but that we'll leave it for later. The number that we are using is 0978 772801, 0978 772801. So shortly we'll be able to get back to the SMS line and see who has sent a message and where is that message coming from. Remember, my two guests that I have on today's program is Ms. Caroline Katotowe, Executive Director from Center for Sustainable Democracy and Governance, CSDG, and Mr. John Lijimu, Governance and Development Expert. We've talked about the address, and Caroline did talk about the splendor and the pomp that comes with the ceremonial opening. But the key part of, or the highlight of that ceremonial opening is the address that the president make to the nation and to Parliament. But do you really think, or maybe the question should be, how does the address impact investor confidence and also fiscal discipline, and also just to attract who would be investor in our country?
Yeah,
maybe Cairo can pick it up.
Okay, so that address in itself carries a lot of substance in terms of empirical data. Investors out there are not looking for a flowery language. They're not looking for big terminologies. They're looking for what are the numbers saying. Remember, when you're an investor, you are considering putting your hard-earned money into a sector, into a business, into a country. And so some of the parameters that you will look at, which the president has squarely, I mean, he's an economist by training, he's an entrepreneur, so he understands the private sector and he speaks the business language. And so from that address, investors are looking to hear in terms of what are the projections, what are the numbers. We have seen a projection in terms of a downward trajectory in the inflation rate already, and this was something that was shared to us by IMF representative. We have also seen Minister of Finance talk about an upward, in terms of growth when it comes to the country's GDP come 2026. So these are some of the things that the investor will be looking at. Okay. Aside from that, the governance aspect plays a key role. I think before 2021, we saw investor confidence dwindle. It was not on the floor, but under the floor in terms of the extent to which it sank. And this is because of the inconsistency in government policies, the political environment itself in terms of peace and unity. Currently, we are enjoying peace and unity in terms of, the rule of law. We are not seeing lawlessness. And these are some of the key areas where the investor tunes in to listen very closely. Aside from that, companies that are listed on the Lusaka Stock Exchange has shown tremendous growth and good performance. That is a draw-in. It pulls in investor, because if I'm an investor, I'll say, you know what? I want to be part and parcel of that growth that is happening. Okay. So those are some of the things that are going to, pull the investment portfolio of this country. The president has been very categorical when it comes to selling this country. I think he has started by putting out the political will in terms of his governance, but also we have seen his consistency. He's not one to backpedal on policies. So he has seen it through in hard times, against all odds, when it comes to every factor that has hit this country, from COVID, from drought, energy insecurity, food insecurity, cholera. He has shown that his leadership is resilient and tenacious, and it is that stability in leadership that gives confidence to that investor that will be listening to the president. And I think those are some of the key areas that he will touch, and I'm hoping he will be more in detail when it comes to the numbers, because numbers do not lie.
Okay. Mr. Dijimo, how do you think the address by the Republican president will influence investor confidence, fiscal management, and overall economic stability for the Agenda 2026?
So here is how the address for the president usually is structured from my perspective. Is that, first of all, the address is a report. So the president is coming back to report on how his government has been able to perform in a number of sectors. So each investor picks what fits them and sees how the government has performed, and where is the government standing in terms of their responsiveness and their position with regard to that particular aspect of that particular investor. So then they pick the mind of the president and say, okay, this is this government's position, and this is how we can fit in or not fit in. And I think that is why it is significant. So one part is that it is a report. The president comes to report on the progress made, whatever address that he makes, whether it is on the national values, or he comes and presents the first part that he gives a report. The second part of his address is usually to be able to put in place the strategies that they envision as a government to be able to implement. Those again create, they trigger a position from the investor's point of view to see whether these strategies will align with their investment.
Okay.
And then probably lastly is that the president then speaks of giving a hope and a word of encouragement and reassuring those that will come on board in terms of what the government has set out to do.
Okay.
So in terms of policy, fiscal policy, in terms of the economy, all that, if you look at it from the parts that I've mentioned, the three parts, is that then the investor is looking at this president addressing and is saying, what is it that they've been able to do? Do I see myself in that, and does this really relate and resonate with how I should be able to grow my business? And if the report doesn't add up, then the investor becomes apprehensive about it. But if it does, like it has always, in the past 4 years shown that I think there's some direction, then the investor is more motivated to want to get into it. But also second part is that then the investor is looking at, okay, so what is it that they are now planning of how this country, what is there a conducive environment for me to invest in? And then the president presents that, and then the investor fits himself into that and wants to see how they can be part of that. And lastly, then the investor should sit down and listen to the president reassuring that I think the investment is going to be safe. So his address, as it were, becomes a point of the investor's briefcase promise.
Okay.
To be able to say, with this, I think I can put in my investment. And that then gives you and me and Caroline and everybody else that, okay, this is where we are in terms of the economy. This is what the government is planning to do in terms of improving the economy. And they have reassured us that this is going to work.
All right, it is only about 4 days remaining before the Republican president comes to Parliament and address the House. This will be the ceremonial opening of the 5th session of the 13th Assembly. And we should be able to check out some of your text messages, and as you can see, they are on the screen, and just refreshing your minds and showing you what goes on when the Republican president is arriving at Parliament grounds. And so that's what we expect to happen this coming Friday here at Parliament grounds. I'd like to urge you to be with us on your screens and be able to follow through what will be said by the Republican President in his address. So the number is 0978 772801. Let's see if we do have some text messages on that line. Let us know where you are watching us from and where you are listening us from, because this program is both on radio and television. Okay, we'll get back to the SMS for a little later. Let me remove your jacket as governance experts and speak as John, who is a citizen of this country, and speak as Caroline, who is a citizen of this country. What is the most outstanding issue that would want the president to talk about come Friday? I'll start with you, Carol.
Okay, so the most important issue for me as a citizen is how the macroeconomics are trickling down to the microeconomics. I'll put it in simpler layman's terms. And of course, I've taken off my jacket as an expert, so if I'm going to speak as, a citizen of this country, I would like the president to place emphasis in describing the strategies that have been used when we say the economy, the GDP is growing, for example. What does that mean exactly? When we talk about inflation rate, reducing, what exactly does that mean for me as a citizen? What are some of the benefits when we talk about conducive interest rates, borrowing power? What does that mean for me who may have an idea to start a small business? What does it mean when we say, the reforms and everything that is happening within the agriculture sector and in the mining sector? What does that mean for that person that may want to tap into, the mining sector and benefit? Tourism, for example. So for me, really, I would like the president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, speak to and explain how the macro economics, how that environment and how successful that environment or the success of that environment has shown the positive aspects that are currently happening. They're already there. If I speak as an expert, there's so many things I can point to in terms of how what has happened in the economy at that higher level, the macro level, has trickled down to the layman in terms of the reduction of meal prices, for example. We are talking about also how we have seen increase in the social sectors when it comes to, CDF, cash for work, which is phenomenal and great innovation. But I would like the president, as head of state, with all the authority and impact that his voice carries, to speak to what this success in the economy means to a layman.
John, quickly before we get to, we do have about 4 text messages, but I'll give you maybe a minute or so.
3 things that I would really love. That's me as John, and not even as expert or all these things. When the president comes, I want just within his message, whether the language is going to be technical or not, I want to see him make me feel and have a smile on my face that I am reassured of living in a country where I can be very peaceful and I can operate without being worried about, So I want the president to reassure of the fact that he is in charge, and he reassures the country that as we go towards the elections, there's going to be more peace, and we're going to enjoy participating in the democracy of this country. But number 2, I would really love to hear the president reassure me that even as we go forward, he is in charge to make sure that everyone, including my father, my grandfather out there in the village, are not going to starve. Just that reassurance that they're going to be okay, and they're going to be food secure, and they will afford to be able to get what they want to get, because he's in charge and he has everything on on the slates very well.
Mm-hmm.
But thirdly and lastly, I would really love to listen from the president, reassure me as a citizen that he is going to create a conducive environment for me to be able to participate in what grows me. So in terms of economics, and I want him to place something that I'll say, okay, so with this that the president has spoken, this is how I can participate in, and I'll still feel very valuable as a Zambian, and I'll add value to if I have a company or my business or my organization that I'm leading. I think the president has created an environment where I think I'll operate very well.
We wait and see if your wish list will be met come Friday, the 12th of September 2025, when the Republican president will be here at Parliament grounds to officially open the 5th session of the 13th Assembly. Let's get to the SMS facility and see who has sent a message, and my two experts will be able to respond to your concerns or your contribution. The number that we're using is 0978 772801. Let's see who has sent what on our screens. All right, the first one comes from Kennedy, right here in Lusaka in Livala, saying, why has the government failed to resolve the issue of electricity? The president promised youths jobs, but look, there is nothing. This is not good. Thank you. Okay, my experts will be able to respond, and I'm sure the president will tackle that when he comes to address Parliament. The other one comes from, it should be Kalumbila in Northwestern Province, and they're saying we have mines, but the province is not changing. It looks like it looks the same. Why are we? What are we doing? And cannot see properly. And where do they take the money coming from Kalumbila? They are in Northwestern Province. I would request that the director just increase the font. This one reads, Zambia has, thank you so much, Zambia has grown in terms of population, and this has led people to migrate from into new towns, or then the areas searching for settlement, especially families. I'm sure I cannot really see that the font is quite squeezed up, but I'm sure you get the logic what the person is talking about. This one reads, I just want to thank the panelists. Surely they know what they are talking about, but other things I could like them to do is to create some grassroots platforms so that their advocacy can be effective throughout the country. That's Ian all the way from Kitwe there. Thank you so much, Ian, for your text message. Maybe we can get back and respond to those concerns. One came from Northwestern Province, and the other one from Copperbelt, and the other one from Livala.
Maybe I can tackle two. One that is probably close to my heart, coming from the province I come from, Northwestern. When you called me, I was on my way coming. I was in Northwestern, and I went all the way into Kasempa, and I was listening to a lot of. I've been there for the past whole week.
Okay.
And listening to the people's, views and complaints, they're saying, look, the development must be proportionate to what the province is being able to actually contribute in terms of what is coming out of the province in terms of the mines. And it is given. I mean, everybody would feel that way, Mr. Ndovi. Because they would want to see certain improvements, not even exaggerated demands. One of them, for example, is, I spent 5 hours because I had a breakdown. And the road from Mutanda to Chavuma, that also dissect into Kasempa, is terrible.
Okay.
It's very bad. That's the same with the road that comes from Tanda into Mwinilunga. It's terrible. There's a road from Solwezi into Kipushi. It's bad. So we are, I think, when they say what they are saying, they are simply saying, could government assist us with these challenges we are having? Which is a very normal discourse. And I think that is one of the things that just government needs to come on board, together with the members of parliament here on this ground, especially my colleagues, the members of parliament, who many of them are my friends. And sometimes, in fact, whilst I was there, I quickly called a number of them. I won't mention names. And I said, you guys, do you drive on this road? They are my colleagues. A lot of them are my friends. And I said, do you guys drive on this road? And I was parked at Chief Umena's palace, break down there, and they needed a mechanic that needed to come and work on the vehicle. So it's given, and I think there is need for being able to look at those issues. Parliament may not necessarily be the ones that comes down to solve those issues, but it is also true that it's from Parliament, through the members of parliament, that such lobbying can be done to be able to.
But we've seen the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Infrastructure, the PP project. But we'll get to that.
Then, lastly, I wanted just to comment on the issue of job creation. I think I want us to really create a barometer for the UPN government with a very fair scales. It's true that there has been and there was a huge number of the waiting list of people that needed to be employed in terms of job creation, and that's the biggest mountain that the UPND government had. But it is also true that the UPND government have tried their level best to be able to create jobs for many people. The opening of the mines, for example, so that then many people can get through the contractors and whatever, that's job creation. The employing of teachers, which they said they should hit 100,000, which they've hit close to about 80,000 already with the replacement that were done last month. 80,000 employed. The health workers, I think that is job creation. And given more time, I think there can be a lot more jobs that are created.
Clarine would want to respond to any of the concerns from our viewers and listeners?
Absolutely. I will look at the issue of electricity and the grassroots platforms. So with the issue of electricity, I think we need to look at what is currently in place and what was there before. It is unfortunate that from the time we got our independence, there has not been measures to take us out from dependency on a single source of electricity. And it is only now that we are seeing these measures being put in place by the UPND government, which is very progressive. But here's the thing, I sympathize with the Zambian people when they talk about, electricity insufficiencies due to various factors that this country has been privy to. And it's not just here, it is every other country within the southern region in terms of the droughts, which is a recipe for the conditions that brought energy insecurity. And so when we look at electricity, we are coming from that history of for the longest time being dependent on hydropower. And so now with the government, with the New Dawn government, they are bringing into place reforms and policies that will bring us out of this dependency on hydropower. Things that are happening currently, which I would like to ask my brothers and sisters out there, my parents and aunties and uncles, the Zambian people, to be a little patient. I know it's difficult, but Rome was not built in a day.
Okay.
I think every development starts with the first step. And the first few steps that this government has done is to ensure that in as much as it's a dire situation, there is consistency in the supply of electricity that is coming to our household. At least there is a structure. It's not haphazard anymore. which allows businesses and households to plan. And that is very important. If you're going to conduct your business, at least you should know and utilize their power when it is available.
Okay.
Another thing, just very quickly,
Yes,
which I would
please.
like to tap into, is the Rural Electrification Agency, REA, and its mandate. We have seen for the first time rural areas where electricity was a myth being connected to the grid in terms of electricity. We have seen Lunga, we have seen Labushimanda. These are areas, these are districts which never ever anticipated, and this is just an example that I'm giving. There are so many rural areas where electricity is being extended. So we are saying, with what is happening in our country insofar as electricity is concerned, the UPND government is on the right trajectory. Given a few more years, we will be able to come out of this quagmire that we find ourselves in, because we are now looking at the solar alternative, wind energy, for example. We have seen the opening of in Chisamba just recently, where this solar production, solar plant is going to feed into the national grid in a very big way, which will take off the pressure from ZESCO, for example.
About 100 megawatts.
Absolutely,
will be,
absolutely. That's a game changer.
Here is my weird way of thinking about electricity.
Can we just allow for her just to conclude her line of thought, and you come in and chip in?
I wanted to add to that electricity thing.
I know it's a very interesting one,
yeah.
because it's exciting, really. It's revolutionary what is happening currently. And we have seen also how we are being empowered. We were talking about empowerment when it comes to job creation, the one that you tackled. There has been job creation in terms of having to be able to tap into the solar systems, in terms of procuring solar systems and putting up your own mini solar system in your home and being able to sell the surplus through the initiative that the government has put in place. So now we are saying, if each and every individual can actually produce electricity, solar power, and could actually sell it to the off-takers so that they are able to earn an income. But apart from that, it also equips us. There are a number of households and businesses that have morphed from hydro to solar. And here is how. With this change, one of the issues as civil society, which was the biggest outcry from us, was, can we have these solar panels, for example, come at a price which is affordable. Affordability was key. And what did the government do? The government said, we are removing taxes. So now these people that are importing these solar panels are doing so at a cost that is competitive when they come into the country, making it easier for you and me to be able to tap into that resource. So it's quite revolutionary when you talk about the electricity aspect.
John, you really wanted to...
I wanted to say this. President, for once, let's think about this. We have had 7 presidents in this country. Imagine that each president was intentional and each president was deliberate about just adding, at the end of their 10-year rule or whatever time they ruled, just adding 150 megawatts of solar or of solar energy into our system. How many megawatts do we need for the country to run on full optimum? Roughly about 750. So imagine each president was deliberate, like this particular president has chosen to be deliberate about adding just 150. We would have just the solar energy itself running this country already.
And
so the hydro was just going to be a bonus.
I know.
So I think that's the direction we should go. Let it be a mandate that each president that comes into that office must add a particular chunk of megawatts.
I've just been told there is one text message that we need to read as before we leave, and let's quickly go to the SMS facility and see that text message that have been sent. Quickly, let's Director, let's have that text message and see how it goes. It seems like the text message is not yet ready. As we conclude, maybe I'll I'll start with Caroline. Looking ahead, what outcomes do you hope to see from this parliamentary session, which will be officially open this coming Friday, in terms of development and governance in our country?
Thank you very much for that question. And so in conclusion, I would like to see more of grassroots interaction. I think one of our messages spoke to that in terms of how can everyone participate. Members of Parliament need to be more in touch with the grassroots. And coming away from this address, we would like them to hold, for example, town hall meetings with their electorates. I know we are going into elections, and usually this is when most of the members of Parliament finally show up on the ground to hear what the issues are from their people. Of course, we'd like to see this in a heightened way, and why I'm saying this is this will improve the quality of debates that we'll be having in Parliament. I must say this, it must be on record, it's quite saddening, disheartening to see some of the parliamentary debates that go on from our members, honorable members of Parliament, when it comes to representation of their constituencies. There is very little substance in their debate. It is usually disruptive. We see a lot of disruptions, we see a lot of politicking, we see a lot of digression when it comes to the real issues. And the reason for that is simple. Most of them do not interact with their people. If they interacted with their people, or if they were living in those constituencies, they would know some of the most pressing matters which needs to be presented. So moving forward in the quest of development, we would like to see that connection between the parliamentarians, the members of Parliament, our leaders, and the people on the grassroots. And this should be, it should be reflective in the debates that we see moving forward. Aside from that, just very quickly, if I may put it on record, it is also important that moving forward, let us have unity in our operations when it comes to even the legal reforms that we are talking about. We have a lot of progressive legal reforms that are currently happening. Let the members of Parliament, parliamentarians, our leaders, see it from a developmental aspect and not from a subjective political party aspect. Let us go into these debates with an open mind. And the first question should be, this proposed, legal reform, right? How does it speak to the development of the people that I am representing? That is the first, the first thing that should come to each and other person's mind as they deliberate. It should be development first and not any other thing.
Mr. Lijemo?
Great. Yeah, I think for me, first of all, as you are aware, this particular session is a session in which we have the Minister of Finance come to present the budget. So, what we hope to see in terms of governance and in terms of development is that we're definitely going to have a budget that speaks more of the issues that the people are going to grapple with or are grappling with. So in short, we are expecting a pro-poor budget, a budget that as it were, helps the citizens get an assurance that come 2026, we will have certain belts that were tightened a bit loosened, so that they can start to enjoy the benefits of the resilience they've had to, go through in the past few years. So definitely we are expecting that there's going to be an increase in a number of things like the CDF, which should be able to then trickle down to the people and they participate. We expect to see the social sectors of the budget being able to have an increment in there, so that they can tackle many of the challenges the people are faced with. But also, we would like to see that in this session, for once, there can be a lot of chastisement and counseling from especially the Speaker of the National Assembly. Because as experts, Mr. Ndovi, we want to see a National Assembly for Zambia that we can go and speak proudly about to everybody.
Thank you so much.
Some of the behavior and the does not speak of the decorum that the National Assembly should be able to project. We implore the members of Parliament to really become and rise above board and become objective as they speak in Parliament. We always watch and we always follow.
We do.
Mr. Dijemo, thank you so much for finding time and being with us on this platform. Caroline as well, I'd like to say thank you so much. I know it was short notice, but you had to find time and
we're always here to
be with us here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, our viewers and our listeners. This is day 4 of the countdown to the official opening of the 5th session of the 13th Assembly. We know that the Republican President, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, will be here at Parliament grounds and to officially open this session. I'd like to urge you to just be glued to television and radio come Friday. But tomorrow again, we'll be back on the same platform as we look at day 3 of the countdown of the official opening of the 5th session of the 13th Assembly. My guest on the program, I had Ms. Caroline Katotogwe, who is Executive Director from Center for Sustainable Democracy and Governance, CSDG, and Mr. John Lijimo, Governance and Development Expert. And my name is Paul Sentindovi on behalf of the entire production crew, and indeed not forgetting you, our viewers and our listeners out there, and those of you that really took part to send in your text message. Let's join, let's be together tomorrow at 8:30 hours. God bless, and thank you so much for your time. The ceremonial opening of the 5th session of the 13th National Assembly by the President of the Republic of Zambia, Ms. Hakainde Hichilema, will take place on Friday, 12th September 2025 at 10 hours at Parliament buildings. Catch us live on DSTV channel 272, GoTV channel 28, Topsa channel 5, Parliament Radio and the National Assembly of Zambia Facebook and YouTube pages. Parliament TV, bringing Parliament closer to you.
Ms. Kambamba Mlenga is Kalulushi Member of Parliament on the Copper Belt under the Patriotic Front Party. She sits on the House Business Committee and Committee on Energy, Water Development and Tourism. She is a force to reckon with and is determined to see to it that Kalulushi constituency is fully developed.
Basically, I'm coming from just an ordinary family. My father's name, who is late, Eshem Mlenga, and my mother's name, who's still alive, is Freedom Mlenga. Both my parents are coming from a business background, and we grew up on a farm on the Copper Belt, a place called Ganaton. That's where my childhood remains are. And basically, coming from a Catholic background, I went to a Catholic nursery school, I went to a Catholic secondary school, and then I did my primary school there also at St.